1, 2, 3. I'm currently away at the moment, so this is Rachel from the past. Today is Doctor Who Sunday. Hello and welcome back to Chat About It, Don't Shout About It with me, Rachel, the Queen of the Woke, as crowned by one of my haters.
I crown you Queen of the Woke!
Let's chat about it. Please let me know what you think of today's story in the comments section below. Please also do keep it friendly in the chat. If you would like to vote on the current poll, hopefully I remembered to put it up, then please head on over to the post page where you can find it after this video. Today we are looking at The Witchfinders, which was written by Joy Wilkinson, and it's a Jodie Whittaker story, because I'm away. The Doctor, Graham, Ryan and Yaz land in the 17th century England. The Doctor had planned to go to the coronation of Elizabeth I. However, they got the wrong time period. They, in fact, land in the era of witch trials. They see people celebrating and everything looks fun, but then suddenly they all have to go somewhere else and it looks very, very dour. So they go to the trial of Mother Twiston, who is on a ducking stool. She's been accused of witchcraft, and if she drowns, she was innocent, and if she survives, then she's a witch. The Doctor warns her companions to not interfere, so they don't. The Doctor does instead. That makes sense. She tries to save Mother Twiston and fails. She then poses as the Witchfinder General, and she heads with her companions back to Becca Savage's house. It's not all what it seems, though. Yaz goes to find Willa and learns that Becca is her cousin, and the Doctor, Graham and Ryan learn that Becca had some interesting items in her house, such as multiple hankies and an axe. She also meets King James, the 6th of Scotland and the 1st of England, who is very much approving of the witchcraft trials due to his belief in witchcraft. Meanwhile, Yaz and Willa witness the reanimation of Mother Twiston's corpse. Yaz gets the Doctor, and the Doctor goes to Willa. After some discussion, the Doctor goes to investigate the mud. She discovers that there is alien matter controlling the mud and going into the bodies of the dead. The Doctor is then caught and interrogated by King James and Becca, and it is concluded that she will be put on trial for witchcraft. Whilst on the ducking stool, the Doctor begins to question Becca on why she has various hankies and medicine in her room. She also asks why she can't touch the ducking stool. Becca refuses to answer, and we see mud dripping out of her eye, which then results in the Doctor being dunked. The Doctor does escape, and then the story begins to reveal that Becca had cut down a tree to remove it from her view, and got attacked by a mud tendril. The mud tendril began to overpower her, so she started the witch trials in the belief that she was purging the devil, and she asked Mother Twiston for help, but she refused to cut off her leg. Mother Twiston was put on trial for knowing Becca's secret, and then she transforms into the Morax, an alien army that has been imprisoned under the tree at Pendle Hill. Can the Doctor stop the Morax and save King James, the 6th of Scotland and 1st of England? So, the last Jodie Whittaker video that we did was kablam, yeah? And one observation that I made was that the writing was good, but it had begun to take a nosedive. You know, there was lots of inconsistencies going on. Great concepts, poor execution. I'm going to start this review by saying exactly the same thing. Once again, it has its concepts, but the execution is just not up to par. In this one, the writing covers Pendle Hill and the witch burnings in, I think it's Lancashire. If you have been a long-time viewer to this channel, then you will know my preference for Doctor Who stories that are historical rather than the sci-fi. If you do not know about Pendle Hill, the history behind it is absolutely fascinating. It really is. I know that it is still quite a sensitive subject, so I think for this, they moved away from the real people associated with the witch burnings, which was a good idea. And I think it was a great idea to create a fictional village altogether, Bilehurst Crag, for the setting. I think it was important to establish the vibe and the feeling of the witch trials without a direct finger pointing at those that could have been hurt and perhaps, upset by this particular story today. So I approve of that. That was tactile. One thing that I do miss, though, was establishing a vibe of a period piece. And I know that this does not happen with every single story. Okay, it's fine. But the fact that they are not wearing period clothing, they are supposed to be going to see Elizabeth I, and they are at a historical moment in time. Where is the historical clothing? It will be nice to remind us there is a TARDIS wardrobe from time to time. It's either that or they didn't have money for the costume. But I would say that it's most likely they just didn't put in the effort to dress these characters in period piece clothing. That critique about the costume aside, all of the other costumes were on point, naturally, of course, because it's period piece, so they would look really weird if they were period piece characters and not wearing period costume. I'm not a historian, so I don't know how accurate they are, but it's good to see that they put the effort there. The makeup design for the Morax was more than just visually good. That's another thing about the Jodie era. Poor execution of the stories, visually good makeup. Make that make sense. I don't know. I don't even know how I could, actually. Becca turning into the Morax, it had some visually disturbing stuff. Now, we all know that Becca was going to be something of the evil incarnate. We knew that. I think that was obvious from the very beginning. The concept behind why she was always, was, behind it was always a really good idea. But where this story falls down is the pacing for this story is all over the place. I think it was trying to function as a sci-fi historical and giving a scientific explanation for what was happening. I think it needed to be one or the other. However, the writer chose to do both, and this is where it creates the pacing issue. I knew the reveal of the Morax was coming, obviously, because I've seen it before. So I timed it until the reveal. I noticed that there were 15 minutes left and not much had been revealed, right? It was 37 minutes in, and the Morax is then revealed, and we get an information dump. Big bad move there in itself. If you're going to do both, then make it a two-parter, with the cliffhanger being Becca turning into the Morax and then giving us more information about the Morax in the second half. You see, I found myself wanting, weirdly enough, to know more about what the Morax could do, and about 10 minutes was not enough to set it up for that execution. The setup of Becca was done in a way to show how dangerous she was with this alien matter inside her body, a gestalt type of being. The sadness behind Becca's actions and her fear were overall explained very well in that story. I like the ideas behind it. One scared woman acting for her own gain, all because she cut down a tree blocking her view on Pendle Hill. It's almost implying that the witch trials were really that simple, when in reality they never were. The setup and the build up to the Morax because of Becca's fear and anguish was very well done indeed, but it failed then to deliver on the Morax side, and it brought it down quite a fair bit, and it was somewhat anticlimactic, unfortunately. The idea, though, behind Pendle Hill being a prison for an alien army was an interesting concept. Had they had enough time to tell that side of the story, I think they would have done it a lot better. I like the idea of the Doctor having to save the king and the inhabitants of Bilehurst Crag, and that the tree was alien technology. I think the special effects were really quite nice too, quite pretty. However, the resolution was very quick, a quick zap of the sonic, and it was a one and done. Yay! Good grief. No creative process, no attack from the Morax, nothing. If the Morax was truly as dangerous as they were saying that it was, then we should have seen it. Now, to be honest with you, I think that it should have just stuck with the historical aspect, with the Doctor and the companions put into situations that would have been correct for the time period. For example, all right, even though she's technically, I don't see the Doctor as a woman. The Doctor is being accused of witchcraft and being placed on the stool. Good idea. And as expected, the Doctor escapes. I also like the fact, although it's irresponsible of the Doctor, that she interferes with the trial of Mother Twiston. She lectures her companions about it, hypocrite of the century, and then does it herself. Total hypocrisy, whatever you want to call it. However, it was what got the story moving, because at that point, it was not doing much else. It would have been better, though, if Yaz had done it, to be fair, right? Would have made much more sense for Yaz to do it. One thing that I will say is that Becca states that if Mother Twiston drowns, then she was innocent, and if she lives, she's a witch. So they do the trial, and drown her on the ducking stool, or tried to. The doctor tries to save her and then confirms that she is dead. She's drowned, right? Becca then says, now we will never know if Mother Twiston was a witch or not. Well, she drowned, didn't she? You said if she drowned, she was innocent. Innocent. She drowned. She was innocent. That makes sense. Now, another thing that should be made to make sense is the portrayal of King James I of England. It is true that modern day historians believe that there was a possibility of him being gay, and this was because he doted on his male servants. However, I would always question as to if he would have been as openly flirty as he is here. Flirting with your male friends or doting on them, in my opinion, are two different things. I'm not entirely sure he would have been extremely camp as portrayed by Alan Cummings. Homosexuality, though, back then wasn't illegal. They also paint King James with massive mother issues, which I suppose, seeing as she was imprisoned from when he was about 10 months old, he most likely had some issues definitely there. I'm not entirely sure what, if anything, King James would have had to say about his mother at the age he is in this. It wasn't unusual for the heir apparent to be separated from his parents anyway, and whilst it is said that they wrote to each other, there was not much, from what I understand, in the ways of records as to how he felt about her. Well, from my research anyway, it appears that this little family talk segment that was there was mere filler, and it was drawn much on assumption more than anything else. If anything, he would have had issues with his cousin, Queen Elizabeth I, who imprisoned his mother in the first place. I also don't think it added anything to the plot whatsoever. Why on earth would a mere peasant like Ryan have any say or word or condolence to the king of what could be possibly the most sensitive subject for him? Now, I just so happen to think that giving some background on the king isn't a bad thing. There is historical stuff done about the Tudors and the Stuarts, obviously. However, they could have gone down the route of perhaps like the unification of the crowns between England and Scotland, because obviously it happened with King James once Queen Elizabeth died. Or they could have dove deeper into King James's belief on witchcraft, because from what I was reading, there was a far greater amount of documentation made on that due to his experiences that would have been much more fascinating to talk about than his mother. Honestly, the more Doctor Who dives into family issues and having a massive background, the less I like it. It's too close to home. Why would you take a well-known fact like King James being separated from his mother due to her imprisonment, make a big song and dance about something that is not much of a record of, instead of focusing on why his belief in witchcraft was so extreme? I did some research because I didn't know that King James was adamant about witchcraft. His wife, Anne of Denmark, was making her way from Denmark to England so that she could marry King James. However, there was a massive storm that damaged her ship, and it stopped her from travelling from Denmark to him. Denmark blamed it on witches. King James went to get her in the end. That, to me, as a family plot point, is much more fascinating and interesting compared to the plot point of being separated from your mother at 10 months old, and she only wrote to me, so I have mummy issues now, even though I knew no different. Now, I'm trying not to be insensitive, but I think the witchcraft in King James is much more interesting, and I can get that behind that vehemently. Right? Especially because this story is all about witchcraft. It just makes more sense. I won't lie, though. Looking at it now, I think I have more issues with this than what I first thought I did. There was a chance to do a stonking good bit in storytelling and intriguing history, and it just misses the mark. Even what Becca Savage was doing was not technically correct. The role of her finding the witches would normally have fallen to a man. At least I think it would have. All right, so please don't quote me on that. Maybe ask Brendan on the sense field or something. He would know a bit more like that. He was a teacher. He taught history, I think it was. Was it history? Was it English? I don't know. I can't remember now. English. Anyway. Now speaking of men, the doctor shows Becca the psychic paper where it says that she is the Witchfinder General. As expected, that it would be later, and this made me laugh a little bit. She becomes the assistant. This most likely backs up what I was saying. There shouldn't have been a female Witchfinder General. However, women were often tried for being witches, and of course, predictably, the Doctor goes on trial for being a witch. Now, in general, I don't have an issue with that. In fact, it was quite a good idea. It was the lines that came before that whilst she was being interrogated by Becca and the King. She was making a big song and dance about how she was now being treated differently because she was a woman, even though men were tried for witchcraft back then. But if she was a man, she would have been okay. Historically, that's not correct. As I just said, men could have been tried for witchcraft. The Doctor, as a man, could have been put on trial for witchcraft. And you can sure as anything, guarantee if they put the Pertwee Doctor in this situation, he would have gone on trial and escaped with the help of the tricks of that he learned from Joe, or he would have used self-defense to get himself out of there. Bam, bam, bam. Basically, what I am saying is that the bit that was happening before that with the Doctor would still have got the Doctor into trouble, no matter if he was male or female. The line was redundant. Rant over. The bits before that were really good, though. I like the idea of the mud trandles that had taken over the dead and controlling them, making them almost zombie-like. Brilliant idea. We should have seen all 30 plus of them, though. That would have been really cool to see. Overall, this story is okay. All right? It is okay. It has its strengths and it has its weaknesses. And, the concept of the history crossing over with sci-fi and all of that, I don't know, that bit didn't work because they just didn't have time to do both. However, that's what I think. Let me know what you think. Chat about it, don't shout about it. Check out some of the other content I have picked out for you. We are on a reduced schedule, so the next video will be up soon. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching today. Don't forget you can join me on my other platforms as well. I've got YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, X, TikTok, Instagram, Locals, Substack, and I also have a Discord. Everything is linked below.